I'm telling you right now, you can stop watching the sequels of franchises that you no longer like or are progressively getting worse by each installment. This is probably one of the most underrated films that I've seen this past month, and as someone that was able to catch one of the last showings of this film, I wear it like a freaking badge of honor. One might call it divine timing, or just being able to lock in at the last second to see this film before it hits streaming. Whichever you believe. Greetings and salutations. Today's case we are discussing is God Is, which is a movie written and directed by Alicia Harris and starring Cara Young, as well as Mallory Johnson. Both featured as the twins at the head of this movie that are tossed into a fire and come out vengeful of the world before them. God summons them, or in this case, their mother, and grants them the opportunity to be able to seek out the source of their scars from the devil himself. If I had to say this film is more comparable to other films you've probably already seen, one battle after another, mixed in with Sinners, that is this film. But some of the themes I could argue could be interchangeable for other races or other religious attachments, to be fair. This movie goes beyond just the color of their skin or anything in that circuit where it just labels itself with one identity and purpose. And I feel like a lot of people are deterred by watching this film, maybe because it has elements where they feel like it's a political or supposed to be a revolutionary type of movie. I feel like people are missing out on the actual subject matter. And I'm not saying that no one is talking about a movie, because I hate when people say like, no one's talking about this or no one's really saying anything. There are people that are watching this movie and are reviewing those movies, and I encourage you, if you don't want to just see my opinion, you can see their opinion as well. It's not the same four people we're used to seeing on the refresh page. Like, let's be clear here.
I'm going to expand on this point a little bit more because I feel like it's worth spending time on, and if you feel the same, you can continue listening. If you just want to get through the review, you can skip this part. Honestly, not a big deal to me. And I also want to be abundantly clear, I'm not shading anyone, not spreading any sort of disinformation, nor am I spreading any hate towards the film reviewers when I mention the things I'm about to mention, or any of the film in relation that I'm going to compare it to. And I'm going to hold your hand when I say this, but I feel like the conversation surrounding indie filmmakers or original filmmakers coming up to the Hollywood plate and making their own films and people being very excited about it, for example, Backrooms or even Obsession, no one has even bothered to mention Is God Is. And I find that a little ironic because this movie came out the same day as Obsession. It's produced by Amazon. Maybe the marketing wasn't as strong because they might not have believed this movie was going to make as much. But quite honestly, this movie is literally Kill Bill with the lack of skills involved to be an assassin. I don't know exactly where that might have left people. The same thing happened with Book of Clarence. And that felt very like, is it because of the religious satire? But when conversations come up, and this is not one of those things that pop up in the new creators on the block or the new original filmmakers that are making a point, this one seems to be a loss in the conversations. And I think that is a shame because it's not all the time that we get to see original stories or people are willing to break out of the mold of seeing the 15th reboot of Star Wars or whatever installment there might be of an already pre-established series. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and my point of view, but if you have any idea on this or you want to share your 2 cents on it, feel free to comment down below and tell me what you think. Things like this seem to just slip through the cracks, and I find it interesting. An interesting observation, and that's all I do is make my observations and call it a day.
But that specific detail kind of reminded me of the reason why I wanted to make videos in the first place, to be able to talk about movies the way that I talk about movies, as the person with the perspective that I have. The second reason being, if there's a movie that no one's talked about, no one seems to be paying attention to, let me be the one to do it or just see it myself. In the world of Letterboxd and internet opinions and everything in the circuit of reviewing and commentating on a movie, I think we can all agree, and as a fellow reviewer, sometimes it's good to filter out those opinions and just see the damn movie yourself. And you'll come out with a way better opinion than if you just sat at home and decided to stick to the reviews for the day. Not saying that that's a bad thing. Sometimes, you know, it's just an economical thing. Maybe you don't want to spend $50 for a ticket. That's understandable. But if you can willingly let yourself be surprised, do try to support more original films if you can, or watch more original films, and maybe you won't feel so locked in a box with today's versions of movies that they want to be putting out and putting on a spectacle. But in regards to this movie, This movie had my attention from the very beginning. The two actresses playing the twins in this movie are absolutely amazing. It's Bubbles with Buttercup going on a road trip to kill Professor Plutonium, and you cannot tell me otherwise. I did enjoy the push and pull dynamic between the two characters because it's kind of like two sides of the same coin. One is a little bit more meaner and has a very crooked outlook of the world. The other one is much more softer, which I find like to be a fun dynamic to play with common stereotypes. And because this movie showcases siblings that constantly have each other's backs, it also shows you examples of when the adults in their lives and the people that they were around don't necessarily do the same. They have no other choice but to lean on each other. But you can still feel both of their ideals throughout the film clash. These twins are not trained killers by any means. The relationship becomes tumultuous because they argue over the fact, why is she all of a sudden inviting us into her life to then kill their dad? Like, this is a crazy situation. And the movie acknowledges that, which I like. There's an added element of mysticism throughout this film, but it's also speaking to the level of bond between these two siblings and how far they can communicate to one another without even uttering a word. Grant, we're the audience. More than likely, most of us watching this aren't twins of any other person. You're not going to know 100% of the time what these two are communicating to one another. So there is a stylized approach towards it, and that's probably one of my favorite key pieces in the film. You can get a little bit sick of the tuition, twin stuff. There's another section towards the end, I would say, that there's another family that the father ends up having. And when you introduce them, they kind of feel obsolete and a little pointless of being there. And I don't know if there's supposed to be some meaning behind it, because it was a little bit of a concern that they were just leaning on men being the perpetuators of violence and rage at all times. It surprised me even more when they were able to show the women that were alongside these men or excusing these men were much worse than the perpetuators themselves. And they either continued the cycle or they completely ignored it and wanted to save themselves instead of helping the people that are stuck in said cycle. And that speaks a lot of volumes. So I do feel like there's a lot of nuance there. I also love the stylized approach of having each character recount their experiences through flashbacks. So a flashback will happen and they are voicing the things in their head that were happening at that time and narrating that sequence. I feel like this is a very brilliant way to introduce characters and get their mindset going into that specific scenario. And I can say all these things, but above all, I'm a big fan of being surprised. Dare I say it, I was surprised. I like the sequence where they actually end up meeting their dad. And that is a moment where you're like, is my perception going to change about this person? Is this a come to Jesus moment? This is going to be very ironic later on, and I know this because the moment I say it, there is one specific person that I know is going to be cackling when I say this. But this movie feels very Tarantino-esque. I do like the aesthetic. I like the things that they were playing with, and maybe that was an inspiration. It's a very Western-y kind of feel movie. It's great. You should see it. But overall, Is God is probably one of the most entertaining, fun, most fulfilling movies that I've seen in the last couple of years. And it's as close to what I want to feel watching a film and going into it. Each character has their own specific trait that makes it memorable and makes it fun the entire time you're watching this movie. The pacing overall in this film stays consistent. It's very much here, moving on to the next thing. But there's one specific scene where antagonist comes in and visits them and decides to derail them from their journey. It just feels like a sequence that didn't need to be there. It just kind of came up randomly. That's pretty much the only thing that I feel like required cinching in terms of the pacing. It feels rewatchable. It's entertaining. I'm never bored watching these two characters on screen and the tumultuous relations they have. And there's just so much depth to be spoken about the family dynamics, domestic violence, and everything that this film discusses, especially the religious satire. But I think it's a great theme to latch onto for what we're having two characters do. Therefore, I deem Is God Is worthy of a bite, because I will always implore you guys to try it and at least see for yourself the experience you'll get from watching the film. Have you seen Is God Is? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Comment down below along with your thoughts, theories, and inquiries. And if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe. And if you just enjoyed the video, be sure to like. And if you want to go ahead, check the description down below for portals to new endeavors, because fun stuff happens there sometimes. But anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye.